This is a gutsy take to send in for Spencer's scale of agreement. I mean, gutsy. Really, it's only willingly a gutsy one to send in if you know me truly on a personal level, which I will get to a bit later on today's show. EJ sends this one in, and if you sent mailbag questions in recently, fear not. We've got a bye week. Keep sending your questions in, and I will have plenty of time to get to them. Love making that a part of the show. SSA, that's Spencer's scale of agreement for those of you that are new here. You send a take, I give you 1 to 10, how much I agree and why. Half points are allowed. SSA, Dierre Hill and Jordon Davison will be the best running back duo ever at Oregon. No disrespect to LaMichael James and Kenjon Barner. Okay. Whoa. I'm glad you had that sentence there at the end. I might have muted you. I wasn't actually going to do that. But I had that energy, that response. Whoa. Hey. Pump the brakes. So you have to understand with this question, and I don't know if you fully understand it, EJ, you might. Are you just talking statistically, or are you talking eye test, vibes, emotions, that sort of thing? Because if you just went statistically, Bo Nix, I believe, had a better Heisman finalist season, numbers-wise, from a passing standpoint than Marcus Mariota. I'm going to double-check that real quick. But there are elements that Bo Nix did better than Mariota. But if you ask any Oregon fan who's the GOAT, I think you're going with Marcus Mariota, right? So that's a tough one. I am really glad you put the LaMichael Kenyon qualifier in there. So Bo Nix was last year at Oregon, 77.4% completion. That was an NCAA record, by the way. Over 4,500 yards passing and 45 touchdowns through the air. Mariota did not quite hit 4,500 yards. He had 42 touchdowns. Mariota threw 4 interceptions. Bo Nix threw 3. So from a passing standpoint, not factoring the legs, Bo Nix was better. Is that all we're going for? Is it just the stats, or are there other things at play? So in my lifetime, and I really only try to refer to players and eras and teams and coaches and all that I watched in person that I actually remember. You know, like I kind of have a vague recollection sort of Joey Harrington play. Not really though. Not really. It's mostly highlights for me. I'm just not old enough for that. But the reason that I had that facetious response to the beginning of this segment about LaMichael and Kenyon is that was the era of Oregon football that not only elevated the program, but elevated my personal fandom for the school and for the football team in particular. Obviously, I root for all Oregon sports, and basketball season's around the corner. I'm really excited for that. But LaMichael and Kenyon are just not like any other duo that Oregon has had. And there have been some really good ones. Oregon has been spoiled. The receiver position has been elevated in the last several years. But my entire life as an Oregon fan, the quarterback position and the running back position have always pretty much had high-level play. Yeah, you would struggle to find another school. I'm not saying you couldn't. I'm just saying there are not readily available examples of schools that have had as prolonged of a stretch of high-end quarterback and running back play. Royce Freeman and Thomas Tyner were a great tandem. When C.J. Verdell and Travis Dye, really good, really productive tandem. I think of this group, they're probably fourth, but again, that's a testament to how good everybody's been. Gary Campbell was, of course, there for a long time, did an unbelievable job, but LaMichael and Kenyon were the first. They were the first ones that I ever remember really latching onto as, wow, these guys are awesome. And they were smaller. It was different. They were so perfect for Chip Kelly's system. If you're going from a statistical standpoint, the take, and I promise I won't forget to rate your take here, EJ. The take gets a lot tougher for me to put into the high numbers. So in 2011, Oregon almost had 2,000-yard rushers. That's really, really hard to do. I don't know that Will Stein, we'll see how long he's Oregon's offensive coordinator, of course, because maybe he becomes a head coach. But Chip Kelly had a just steadfast commitment to running the football. And nowadays, offenses involve a lot more RPA. He had plenty, back then. Don't get me wrong, but those offenses were first and foremost predicated on the run, the RPO, and then the play action. That was a lot of what they did. I don't think their passing offense and concepts were, at least in the early years, like that complicated all the time. But compared to what you see nowadays, Kenjon Barner in 2011 had 939 yards, and LaMichael had over 1,800, which is crazy awesome. LaMichael in his 3 seasons with the Ducks, he never ran for under 1,500 yards. Okay, those guys are both going under 1,500 yards this year. In 2012, when LaMichael went to the NFL and Kenjon stayed with Mariota, Barner ran for over 1,700 yards. The numbers were crazy. I do not believe we're going to see a statistical run like that again. Now, if you go beyond the numbers and say, hey, you're building your all-time Oregon team or all Oregon team from the last 2 decades or something like that, and you're going, well, which running back tandem do you want back there? By the end of Dierre Hill and Jordon Davison's career, because of their different styles, maybe you do take them over LaMichael Kenjon. Kenjon was always LaMichael light, and I don't even know how light he was, frankly, when you consider he went for 1,700 in the year that LaMichael wasn't there. So those two guys were kind of the same, whereas the word or the pairing, nickname, whatever you want to call it, moniker for these two coming out of high school was Thunder and Lightning. Jordon Davison Thunder, Dierre Hill Lightning. Now we see Jordon Davison's got that combination to him as well. I've always been pretty bullish on Thomas Tyner and Royce Freeman. I loved that running back tandem. Loved it. And I think because Mariota won the Heisman for the first time in Oregon history, that particular era of Oregon running backs goes overlooked. But man, I don't think there is a scheme or a team that Royce Freeman and Thomas Tyner wouldn't have had success on. They were absolutely phenomenal. I always loved Thomas Tyner, and it was a bummer that his Oregon career ended with an injury, and then he was able to get back on the field, was with Oregon State, and wasn't quite the same. But he was awesome. So the best running back duo ever, statistically, they're not going to get there because a 3-season run of Kenjon Barner and LaMichael James, because of how the first half of this year has gone and how many different backs are getting touches, which I think is great, that takes out the statistical components. Then you're just talking eye test. So let's remove the numbers for a moment. I can still only put this at a 3. Because again, the position has just had so many. I haven't even mentioned, think about it, as I was saying about how good this position has been for the Ducks, I have not mentioned, I'm sure there are some old school tandems that the older demographic that listens to or watches this show, love you guys for doing that, by the way, appreciate all you guys watching and listening always, but I have not mentioned Jeremiah Johnson and Jonathan Stewart. Like, it's just such a tough list to crack. It really, really is. So I can't put that any higher than a 3. And my personal favorite will always be LaMichael and Kenjon. Always. No one will ever knock him off. Michael's my favorite Duck of all time. I've always said that. He always will be. So, good question, though. That close to offending me. But you didn't. You saved it. You saved it by saying no disrespect to LaMichael and Kenjon. So, Dierre Hill and Jordon Davison, I put that at a 3. Last one. Fun question for the pod. This is from Moody Man. What is the best way someone can prove they're an everydayer? I'm a terrible speller, and I know you're a grammar expert. Everydayer is one word. We came up with it here at the Locked On Network, so the dash is not that far off, so I don't need to correct you that much there. Is it your opinion of the expanded playoff, founder of the Amari Washington fan club, understanding of the Spencer scale of agreement? Would love to hear what you think, and as always, go Ducks. Well, you got a lot of them in there, frankly. My thoughts on the playoff, not a fan of expansion. Amari Washington, if you know I am self-appointed chair of the Amari Washington fan club, you have to tune in a pretty hefty amount going back to January. Because that's when I launched that endeavor here on the show. So saying as always, go Ducks, that means you listen to the very end of every episode, because that's how I end every single show, except for the crossovers I do with others, because others don't need to have to edit out me saying go Ducks, and other fan bases probably don't want or need to hear that, and I figure you guys can do without it for a day every now and then. But yeah, I think those are a couple takes. Like, knowing if I just say SSA, you know what that is. Knowing LaMichael is my favorite Duck. That is a fun question to end the show. Frankly, I think you hit on it. I think it's just if you, I don't know why you'd be wanting to prove it, but hey, I'm here for it, man. You guys send the questions, I answer them. That's how this ordeal works. Any kind of repeated data point that I bring up, or any type of repeated take that I have, and you got several of them on there, so yeah, if you were trying to prove your everydayer metal to me, I got you. Appreciate my everydayers. Appreciate all of you. Let's enjoy the Wisconsin game, shall we? Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Oh, and wait for it. Here we go. And go Ducks.